This is Professor IDP Scott Soltis, and today I'm here to share 4 of my favorite deep picks for IDP drafts. So when I say deep picks, I'm not thinking of 4th or 5th round flyers, although one player probably does meet that criteria. I'm thinking more about those leagues that we lovingly and affectionately refer to as degenerate leagues. So leagues where we're talking about 12 teams, but an 8 or 10 round draft, or a 16 team league that even has 5 rounds. So you're talking about more players, or leagues that have multiple copies, leagues that use defensive ends and corners specifically, and even your vanilla leagues. You're going to be able to learn some things here today in terms of my favorite late picks for those larger format drafts. So to get started, there is my rookie IDP fantasy ride or die in 2025, and that is Noel Williams, cornerback, Kansas City Chiefs. So Williams is someone who checks all the boxes for me for a great dart throw. First, he is incredibly cheap. I'm going to be referring throughout this guide to a few different drafts that I'm currently in. One that is in the 120s in terms of where we're currently picking, and another is currently at pick 98. In the draft that's a little bit further along, it's on Sleeper, so it uses just the 3 IDP positions. But Williams was taken 98th overall in that draft by me, and I have him in my queue for 115 in the other draft, but we're currently at pick 98, and obviously he hasn't gone yet. So Williams is someone who I currently have 100% exposure to between these 2 leagues and my other league, which operates somewhat like a Devy league. And the reasons are many. I absolutely love him in any sort of dynasty best ball format because he has huge big play upside. He actually led FBS in interceptions at Cal last season. He was also a competent kick returner. He was one of the primary kick returners for Cal in 2024, one of, if not the only DBs who has real kick returning chops in this rookie draft class. He is in Kansas City that doesn't have someone locked into that role currently. So there's a path for him to get some very valuable special team snaps if you're in a league that scores return yards, as I believe all leagues should. But even if you're not, and even if you're scared off by the fact that he primarily plays out wide and is an interception machine, any player profile you'll see of Noel Williams will see people talking about him as a very willing and competent tackler. He is not afraid to get his nose in there in run defense. He's not afraid to make tackles on receivers after catches. And so we love to see that as a floor for a DB. The other concern that we have about Williams is there's not necessarily a very clear path to snaps for him in year 1 in Kansas City. But if you take a deeper look at Kansas City's secondary, you'll see that Trent McDuffie is amazing and no one's coming for Trent McDuffie's role. But beyond that, it's guys on rookie deals or team-friendly contracts. McDuffie is the only player for the Chiefs that graded out in the top 32 of the NFL in terms of corners last season. The team did just bring in Christian Fulton on a 2-year deal that has decent money attached to it. But if you look more closely at that contract, there is a very team-friendly out after this season. So Williams is a player who might make some impact this year. He was taken in the 3rd round. The Chiefs are speaking very highly about him, just like all teams are speaking highly about all of their rookies right now. But I'm also speaking very highly about him. I am trying to get him in every single draft that I have because his upside is that of a Keyshawn Nixon or a Marcus Jones, or going way back, Devin Hester, who had CB designation when he came out. Probably not as prolific of a kick returner, but with the NFL again changing the kick return rules to encourage more returns, there may be more yards than ever to be able to get. And if he gets a significant chunk of those, that is a nice bonus to be able to have. My next player is the one that I alluded to earlier that I think you should probably consider even in late rounds of your kind of vanilla 12-team 5-round rookie drafts, and that is Nick Scorton, defensive end for the Carolina Panthers. So the latest I saw him go on Sleeper was 68 overall. In MFL, he went 73 overall, so he's going in that 5th, 6th kind of range if you're in a traditional 12-team league. I don't have any exposure to Scorton yet, but it's not for a lack of trying. I have sent multiple trade offers in multiple leagues when Scorton was available, and I just didn't have any draft picks in those areas. And the reason why I'm excited about Scorton, even for this year, I'm definitely excited moving forward. He's only 20 years old, so there's a lot of time for growth and upside. But he seems like a guy who is a great combination of talent and opportunity. In terms of talent, when you take a look at the consensus big board pre-draft, so using places like ESPN, Scouts, PFF, The Athletic, all of the really prominent places, I like to use a consensus big board that The Athletic compiles of prominent sources, and then that Wide Left compiles of all of the sources that are out there to get a sense of what value talent-wise players are. And Nick Scorton was the 40th rated overall prospect in this season's draft. So Scorton absolutely has the talent, and that's obviously including offensive linemen. So he is a top IDP, likely a top 20 IDP talent-wise. His stable metrics, according to the PFF draft guide, were also great. He was above the 75th percentile in both of the areas I look at, which are run defense and pass rush. So the talent is definitely there. The opportunity is there as well. The Panthers recently cut Jadeveon Clowney, so it's really just Scorton, DJ Wonnum, Patrick Jones, and fellow rookie who was drafted a little bit later in the 2025 NFL draft. So there is a path for Scorton to get meaningful snaps in 2025 and to establish himself as that long-term great run defender and pass rusher, that long-term edge that every team wants to have. He is the kind of guy that I would absolutely trade a future fourth for to get in the 5th round of many draft formats. He, like I said, has good draft capital. He was taken in the 2nd round after trading up, so the Panthers are clearly high on him. Very manageable room to get past. Great talent. Nick Scorton is a great deep round pick in your IDP drafts. Up next, we have another defensive end, and that is Landon Jackson, the defensive end for the Buffalo Bills. In the sleeper draft that I'm in, he went 83rd overall. He went 96th overall in the MFL draft that, again, uses 5 positional designations. I don't have exposure yet, but it's still very early in rookie draft season for me, so I'm hoping to remedy that. So I just mentioned Scorton. He was the 40th rated prospect coming into the draft. Jackson was the 41st rated prospect using a consensus model. So the talent is absolutely there as well. I'm not necessarily a big relative athletic score guy. I don't have anything against it. I just haven't done the analyses to determine if I wanted to be part of my model, but I know many are. So if you are a RAS fan, then you should also like Jackson because his RAS was 9.78. He had good draft capital as the 8th pick in the 3rd round, so we like to see that. One of the things that's working against him is a muddy depth chart. So the Bills brought in both Joey Bosa and Michael Hoyt. They still have AJ Epinesa. Greg Rousseau will obviously lock down the other side, but the other defensive end position is very much there for the taking. Maybe not necessarily this season, but possibly in 2026, which makes Jackson a phenomenal taxi squad stash if you're in a league that has taxi squads. He was highly rated coming into the draft, very good RAS, good draft capital. The reason that I think he's available at places like 83 and 96 in these drafts is because people read the PFF draft guide. And if you read the PFF draft guide, there are 2 things that'll give you some pause. First, his comp is Carl Nassib. And as a Penn Stater and a watcher of Hard Knocks, I love Carl Nassib and his financial advice and his football prowess, but he was never that great of a fantasy asset. What is probably more concerning for people, though, is his pass rush grade. His pass rush grade is sub 30th percentile, but his run defense grade is above the 80th percentile. So he is a very solid run defender. He's described as a very high motor kind of guy, but those pass rush metrics were not there coming out of college in terms of PFF's evaluation of his stable metrics throughout his collegiate career. That is concerning, and I'm not here to say that I wouldn't rather have a guy that has the opposite, a great pass rusher who has questions in run defense. But it's not necessarily a kiss of death for fantasy viability for 2 reasons. First of all, you can get sacks without being the most talented pass rusher in the NFL. He's a rookie. He may still develop some of those chops, but with Greg Rousseau being a great anchor on the other side and vets like Joey Bosa there to learn from, that skill can improve. And even if it improves marginally, with someone like Rousseau flushing quarterbacks in your direction, you can not have a lot of talent and still get 4 or 5 or 6 sacks in a given season. Now, that's probably not the ceiling that we're hoping for, but that can help you get to a pretty solid DE2 finish at the end of a year. The other reason I have optimism is I went back into PFF's historical data over the past 3 seasons and took a look at players who had a greater than 80 grade in terms of run defense, but a sub 55 pass rush grade. That list is only 2 players. Last year, it was Harold Landry, who was above 80, but actually below 50. And then Cam Jordan in 2022, who was above 80 for run defense and just below 55 in terms of pass rush. Last year, as you're likely aware, Landry still had a pretty darn good season, finishing as DE10. Back in 2022, Jordan also had a pretty good season, finishing as DE8 that year, despite, again, very suspect pass rush grades. Now, that's not to say that Landon Jackson is the next Harold Landry or Cam Jordan, but it is to say that the range of positive outcomes is high, and even if you aim for that and fall short, that is still a heck of a return on an investment for someone that you're taking in the 80s or 90s of a rookie draft. The final player that I wanted to mention here that I'm aggressively targeting is Darius Alexander, defensive tackle, New York Giants. So in the sleeper draft that I'm in, he went 74 to me. At that point, he just seemed like a great value. In the MFL draft that I'm in, he's available at 98. And just before I clicked record, I sent a trade offer because that's 701. I sent a 6th to the person who manages that team to see if they'll take a future 6th for 701. And if they don't, I'll keep trying as long as he is on the board and not taken, because I think Alexander is an absolute steal when you talk about the 90s in terms of fantasy drafts. So I do have some exposure to Alexander. I'll probably increase that exposure as the offseason goes on. He was the 53rd rated prospect pre-draft, drafted at 301 overall to the Giants. Both good things that I like to see. He has a very manageable depth chart ahead of him. While Dexter Lawrence is absolutely going to be locking down one side, as fantasy enthusiasts know that he can and does, Alexander has a manageable depth chart. The only other Giants defensive tackles not named Dexter Lawrence are Roy Robertson Harris and Raheem Nunez-Roches that are really competing for snaps. Robertson Harris finished as the 81st overall graded defensive tackle in the NFL in 2024, and Nunez-Roches finished as 99th. So again, not a steep hill to climb for Alexander to be able to get some meaningful snaps. If you're a RAS person, great RAS at 9.17. And if you're also a fan of people being in great situations, Alexander is in a great situation. I mentioned he's going to be lining up next to Dexter Lawrence when he gets on the field, but just think about the pass rush along the edge as well, with Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, and Kayvon Thibodeau creating lots of opportunity for interior pressure, as teams should rightfully be very concerned about that formidable edge rush that the Giants will have, and then the force that is Dexter Lawrence. So those are 4 of the IDP that I'm targeting in some of my very deep drafts. If you like this, if you want to learn more about these players, check out the Degenerate Draft Guide at the idpshow.com, where you can read more about these players and some more of their underlying metrics, as well as 4 additional players that I didn't have time to talk about today, but I included in that article. So if you have any questions, comments, guys that you're targeting late, I would love to hear who they are. My rankings, just like everyone for the shows, are dynamic things, and so I'm always trying to learn more. If you think I'm crazy in reaching for some of these guys, even in the 80s or 90s, I'd love to hear that too. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you enjoy the Degenerate Draft Guide, and I will see you in the drafts.